got von der Leyen coming out and be like, oh yeah, we're going to spend like 300 billion on cloud infrastructure over the next 10 years. Dude, you do realize that 300 billion is 200 billion less than what Altman plans on spending in the next 5 years. We talk a lot about the tech titans, but the ultimate tech titan is the United States of America. When you're looking at undersea cables, when you're looking at cloud infrastructure, when you're looking at apps and platforms, when you're looking at AI, when you're looking at chip development and chip influence and chip manufacturing. Manufacturing maybe not, but America, so long as America keeps its allies on board, America will dominate in that area as well. India's doing very well. They've got some of their own AI coming up. China is perhaps the biggest challenger to America in the field of technology, and Europe is really falling behind. In today's episode, I'm going to discuss all of them. The world is still America's to lose. America is still the one to beat because it dominates all these players in so many areas. Think about all the apps you use, like Netflix, Amazon, Facebook, Google, OpenAI. None of these would be possible without cloud, and yet all our cloud is owned by Americans. Maybe not all, but most of it. I mean, globally, Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple control 63% of global cloud. And then in Europe, businesses depend on these people for 70% of their businesses. You got von der Leyen coming out and be like, oh yeah, we're going to spend like 300 billion on cloud infrastructure over the next 10 years. Dude, you do realize that 300 billion is 200 billion less than what Altman plans on spending in the next 5. And that's one company. Think about how much all the others are spending combined. You know, when we look at the data, you can see that America has spent over $400 billion on AI over the last 10 years. Between 2013 and 2023, America spent over $450 billion on AI. Now, you combine that with America's military, and who do you think is going to be running the world for the next 10 to 20 years? I get that there's a lot of talk about people leaving the dollar. I get that. That's pinnacle. If there are 3 things you need to dominate the world with, it's a strong military, which America is still head and shoulders above everyone. America spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined, okay? So that one, America wins and securely. Then you're looking at technology, okay, and the race for AGI. Remember what I said, whoever gets the AGI first dominates the world. In this video, I'm making the case that America is still head and shoulders above everyone else, even China. Even China, America defeats China when it comes to the race for AGI and technological supremacy. Yes, China is beating it in manufacturing, but that's one part of the bigger technological pack. And then there's the dollar, which is the one that many economists are worried about. Remember what I said about the dollar being the one rule to rule them all? Economic strength comes down to the dollar and how many countries use the dollar. There's been a lot of articles written about countries leaving the dollar. But you're not leaving the dollar with me, as Trump said. That's the one I fear for, and that's the one I'll do future videos on. But technologically and militarily, America is still calling all the shots. When you look at cloud, when you use your Amazons, your Netflix, your Microsoft apps, they're all dependent on the clouds dominated by Bezos, Pichai, and Nadella. You owe your data to these guys. The Europeans have had a problem with this, by the way. Von der Leyen coming out and being like, we want more digital sovereignty, you know? You tech titans, you're not listening to our GDPR, our Digital Markets Act, our Digital Services Act, and she's actually had some victories against them. Both Pichai and Cook have had to pay fees and so on. But even here, America has the upper hand because Europe's like, oh, we'll develop our own infrastructure. Oh, we'll develop our own apps and services. You do realize that will take 10 to 20 years to do. And what's Europe going to do in the time being? They're going to just sever their ties with America? Europeans are going to stop using Facebook, stop using Apple, stop using Google. You're going to stop using OpenAI, which is becoming more integrated in our systems today. So unless you want an economic catastrophe, Europe is still going to be dependent on America. And yes, they can make some strides towards digital sovereignty. But even here, the tech titans are countering. Microsoft and Amazon have both said that they hear the European concerns around sovereignty, and they're willing to invest more money in cloud infrastructure that better aligns with European values, that allows Europeans to have more sovereignty over their data. This might screw the business model up a little bit, but they're willing to compromise just so that they can keep their services in Europe. Zuck's the one who's being the most difficult. Zuck being like, nah, I'm not paying that fine. You have to understand that Trump has the Cloud Act. The Cloud Act basically allows him to pressure these tech companies to give him access to whatever data, European data, whatever external data he wants, which is another one of the reasons why so many European companies are trying to push away from Trump. But realistically, they're screwed. I mean, there's nothing they could do. Europe's going to be dependent on America for technology for at least 10 years. They're making strive towards sovereignty now, but the GAIA Act and so on, European cloud providers, but Europe just doesn't have the competitors, and it doesn't have the VC capital as well. I mean, when you look at the graph, you can see that it's so much easier to grow a business and scale a business in the United States when it is compared to Europe. just because of the amount of like freaking investment these guys have. Like, these guys are freaking cowboys, man. Which is a shame, because by gathering our data, America uses it to develop its own AI services, to develop its own platforms and technologies, to develop its own data analytics and services. The only person who can realistically take on America is China. I'd like to give India some props too, because look, when you're looking across some of the biggest CEOs in the world, they're all like Indian. When you look at some of the greatest engineers in the world right now, they're all Indian. Like Pichai, Nadella, some of the top ones are Apple and Nvidia. It's insane. And yet India doesn't have its own Nvidia, and there's a big question about that. If anyone knows why, do let me know. But for some reason they haven't developed their own trillion-dollar titan in the way that America has, and the way China looks likely to eventually have. India gets a lot of hype, and I am excited about India, and I will do more videos on India in the future. But right now, then they're in that level just below China and America. It's China and America up here, and then on the next level, India, maybe Saudi Arabia looks like it's quite a promising country in the future. Russia, like, struggling to stay in that bracket. Militarily, yes. Economically and technologically, no. Europe, again, for me, struggling to stay in that Champions League spot. China's the only one that can take on America and even defeat America in some ways. There are some scholars who actually believe that China is head and shoulders above America in technology. I disagree, based on what I've already said. America can't compete with China inside of China. They've blocked that place off properly. Like, when you look at the companies in China, you've got Alibaba, Huawei, Tencent, are basically offering cloud services and technology to less developed parts of the world. And then when you look inside of China as well, they dominate China's cloud market. There's no way like an Amazon, an AWS, or a Microsoft Azure is competing with China when it comes to their own cloud market. But when you look at the things internationally, you can see that their influence remains marginal. On the global stage, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google are still destroying Chinese companies. The best Chinese company in cloud infrastructure is Alibaba, and you can see on this graph that they control only 5% of the globe's cloud market compared to, to a titan like Amazon, which is 33%. Xi's been planning to take on America technologically ever since 2015, when they announced the Digital Belt and Road Initiative. And, he's made some progress. So, America and its allies used to have a monopoly on undersea cables being what you need to what carries the internet, right? Now, China used to have nothing, and now since 2015, they've increased their share. HMN, which is Huawei Marine Network, are laying down 11% of all undersea cables. But this remains marginal when you compare it to like some of the American companies and some of America's allies as well. You've got Subcom, Nippon Electric, and Alcatel Submarine Networks, which together lay down 87% of cables. So that's America and its allies. I partner France and Japan with America because they are allies. But, Trump has thrown some spanners into the works with the way he's treating the allies. But on the whole, there's also been a lot of promising signs. A lot of people are now agreeing to make the investments in America that Trump's demanding, which for me suggests that, yes, Trump is being harsh and he's being brutal. And, a lot of his allies, like Japan, like your Indias, like Saudi Arabia, they are making strides towards more sovereignty. But they can't completely detach themselves from the United States. They can't. They're so reliant on America for chips, for example, for the technology you need to design chips with, for the aid that they get militarily, for the support they get from America's other allies. I mean, they're so reliant. In contrast to China, Amazon, Meta, and Google fund 50% of world's undersea cables. There's no way China's competing with that right now. One of the areas China is taking America on in is in AI, right? So remember when they released DeepSeek and everyone's like, oh, this is so scary, man. DeepSeek's coming for OpenAI, man. What's Sam Altman gonna do? And, Nvidia's stock plummeted and everyone's getting hysterical. But since then, Nvidia's made a comeback. OpenAI, yeah, they have a bit of a flop with GPT-5, but on the whole, it's still ChatGPT is still destroying everyone when it comes to weekly users, daily users. Okay, hottest technology in the world. Monthly users is taken on Google as well. Even in terms of attitudes, we can see that the attitude towards AI was pretty negative for a lot of Western countries. Germany, France, UK, USA, all of them. Look at this data that I'm showing you. The attitudes were quite low compared to countries like India and China, which had much more positive sentiment towards AI. But this is now seeing a shift, and more people are becoming increasingly positive about AI. David Sachs, Trump's AI and crypto are coming out and saying fears of AI replacing everyone's jobs are overblown. This may give us a little bit more confidence in the path going forward. Musk may have taken a hit in recent years, so here's car companies facing serious competition from BYD. Musk controls 11% of the world's EV market. By contrast, BYD now controls 23% of the global car market. But when you zoom out, you actually can understand that Musk, Altman, all these guys doing very, very well with their AI technologies, winning government contracts in the UK, winning government contracts in the USA. You know, I think it was Altman, Modi, Pichai, and Musk have all won $200 million contracts with the Department of Defense, offering transformative technology to support their war fighting and help them maintain strategic advantage over their competitors. Bezos has competition when it comes to things like Alibaba. When you look at China's internal market, you can see that Alibaba destroys Amazon. But when you look at things more globally, you can see that Amazon absolutely decimates Alibaba, and no one comes near Amazon when it comes to the global market. Amazon is still head and shoulders above everyone in the global marketplace. And the same applies to social media. I spoke earlier about Zuck and how he's still the king. I get that there's a lot of hype around TikTok, so much hype around TikTok, and it well and truly changed the game when it became a big thing in the early 2020s. But again, out of the top 10 social medias in the world, practically all of them other than TikTok are American, with Mark Zuckerberg controlling 3 of the top 5 and the other one going to Pichai. Zuck's, how old is he? Like, he's 40 or something? He's yet to hit his mental peak. Mental peak for me is between 45 and 60. Zuck is valued at 245 billion or something, and he hasn't even hit his mental peak. Can you imagine what he's going to be in 10 years' time? The last section I want to talk about is chips, right? This is one of the areas where America dominates the game, okay? So I spoke earlier about chips, and yes, America doesn't make all of its chips. America is the leader in chip design technology, so EDAs and so on, electronic design automation software. You need this technology if you want to make chips. And then America's also the leader when it comes to companies that design logic chips, okay? So you get NVIDIA or AMD and so on. If you want to be a player in the technological battle, in the race for AGI, you can't function without an NVIDIA or an AMD, because there's no other company in the world that can do it like they can. China has some, but nothing like them. Now, there's more to the race for AGI than just NVIDIA and AMD and the EDA software. Okay, so for example, America needs the Netherlands on board, because the Netherlands is the only country in the world which has ASML making the super lithography machines that you need to create the 5, 3, and 2 nanometer chips, the ones that are going to power the freaking Terminator bots. So America can't do without the Netherlands. They need the Netherlands on side. The other people they need on side are the South Koreans and the Japanese. Japanese providing some of the most critical minerals and technologies you need to make these machines, and South Korea, which are the leaders with SK Hynix and Samsung, the leaders in memory chips, which you also need to create the robots of the future, the technology of the future, the AGI of the future. Probably the most important player is TSMC in Taiwan, okay, who manufacture all these chips that America, South Korea, all these guys want to make, right? You can talk about Britain as well with its talent, but really, you can't compare Britain to TSMC when it comes to the race for AGI, man. TSMC is so big, and they've agreed to now invest in more technology in the United States. So you basically got the US, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, the Netherlands, Britain, all teaming up against China on this. And yet they still might not win, because China is so capable of doing everything itself. It's the most insulated economy you've ever seen. The closest thing that comes to China today is like Germany before World War I. Remember before World War I when Germany was doing everything itself? And everyone's like, geez, Germans are getting really freaking powerful. We should probably do something about it. And it took literally both World War I and World War II. It took the rest of the world to gang up in order to take down Germany. That's how powerful Germany was during both World War I and World War II. You literally had to get Russia, America, and Britain to team up in order to take it down. And, Germany's a bit of a has-been power, but today, China's doing the same thing. You literally need... Why do you think Trump's willing to concede bits of Ukraine to Russia? It's because he needs Putin on side against China. Now, I've never seen a power grow quite like China. India, you could talk about becoming the next thing that... right now, India's growing like what China used to. But will India ever eclipse China? I don't know. I've never seen something... With China's population... Okay, and their resources, short of oil, which they need Iran for. Short of that, China does everything else. And this is the thing, I can't believe Trump is, pushing Modi in the way he's doing, because he needs Modi. He needs everyone on side against China. I spoke about this in an earlier video. Go watch it. Why America can't beat China? And again, I think America can do it if it keeps the allies on side. For example, why isn't America going for a free trade deal with the European Union? That's because culturally they're very similar. Go read Huntington's Clash of Civilizations, man. He makes the case for the world breaking up into different civilizations, and I said it earlier that economically it might not make sense, but it also could become a thing given the trajectory right now. But when it comes to chips, which, you know, China, there was news actually just the other day with China coming out and asking America to, one of the reasons they were actually willing to make some concessions, because they need America's goodwill so that they can obtain semiconductors. Remember, China spent more on importing semiconductors than it does on importing oil. So they're really desperate for it. Yes, they have rare earths, but they don't have, like, in every other area, when it comes to manufacturing them, when it comes to designing chips, they're really behind. And this is one area that America has the advantage. And there is talk about Trump isolating these players and distancing himself and pushing allies away. But then at the same time, there's also word that these companies, TSMC, and then has agreed to invest in America. A lot of foreign companies have offered to invest in America, first under Biden and then under Trump. And then also Japan has offered to invest in America. UK has conceded to America. There's still evidence to suggest that America is taking its allies seriously. Some. Though it's still early days, need to look more into that. I get that America is not quite what it used to be, okay? When you look at its global GDP, for example, okay, 20 to 25% of global GDP, half of what it was 80 years ago. I get that. But when you look at the sheer power and influence it has over the global marketplace, over global technology, it's staggering, okay? There are countries as powerful as China that cannot do what they want to do unless America says so, because America can simply click its fingers and deny China access to the world's most critical technology, the world's most needed chips, which China needs to get to AGI. And unless America clicks its fingers and allows China to access those vital semiconductors, China cannot achieve AGI, and America will dominate the world. But America needs to keep its allies on side. When it comes to technology, there is still no power like the United States, I believe. Guys, many thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, subscribe. World Order covers all things wealth, power, and technology. Share this with anyone you think will find it valuable. And guys, hit the bell icon so you stay up to date with all new World Order content. Thanks again. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.